Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining right at the top of the hour. We'll give folks just a second to get in the room before we get started. But yeah, really excited for today's discussion on the Toluca-Cape Town Declaration. That will get underway here in just a second. All right, I think we have a pretty full discussion today, so I will go ahead and kick things off as as folks are continuing to join. So welcome everybody to today's event on the Toluca-Cape Town Declaration, and we are thrilled to have two great friends and colleagues joining us for today's conversation. Reggie Raju, the chair of the second Diamond Open Access Summit that was held in Cape Town this past December, and Director of Research and Learning at the UCT Libraries in Cape Town, as well as Arianna Becerril García, who was the chair of the first Diamond Open Access Summit in Toluca the year before last, and also executive director of Read a Leak, and is sort of key driving forces behind both the Diamond Open Access Summits and the Toluca-Cape Town Declaration. We're really fortunate to have both Reggie and Arianna here to give their perspective on the declaration and its significance, particularly within Latin America and Africa. And as Diamond Open Access grows in importance as a central part of the Diamond Open Access ecosystem, we wanted to convene this conversation to sort of talk about the role that the Declaration can play in shaping the development of Diamond Open Access, particularly in centering the public good and local communities' needs in the development of Diamond. And in particular, we really hope that today's conversation can be the start of a broader one about how to work collaboratively to support one another in these efforts in North America in particular. To that end, we'll have Reggie and Arianna open the conversation today. And after their remarks, we'll hear briefly from three folks doing important work in this space in North America. Jessica Delaire Clark from Erudit, Catherine Mitchell from CDL, and Janet Swatshano from the Library Publishing Coalition. Would encourage folks to share comments, responses, questions, reactions in the chat at any point throughout the discussion, and we'll also have time toward the end for anybody who'd like to raise your hand and come off mute to share your own perspectives, your work in this area, and how it aligns with the Toluca-Cape Town Declaration. So with that, I will kick things off by turning it over to Heather Joseph to share a few brief thoughts from SPARC's perspective about the importance of Diamond and the Toluca-Cape Town Declaration, and then we'll hear from Reggie and Arianna. Heather.
Thanks so much, Nick. Let me just join Nick first and foremost in saying welcome to you all today. SPARC is really proud to be hosting today's webcast, and we're also very proud to have helped play a small role in supporting the Global Diamond Summits in both Mexico and South Africa. The Toluca-Cape Town Declaration, which we're focusing on today, we believe represents a real milestone on the path towards our longstanding vision of treating research as a public good, accessible to everybody, regardless of geographic, economic, or institutional positions. We feel so strongly that by affirming research as a public good, the Declaration does something very optimistic. It acknowledges that we have the ability to unlock extraordinary potential. And at SPARC, we think this is really the true promise of Diamond Open Access, to contribute to developing a global knowledge ecosystem where insights can be shared freely, where innovation knows no boundaries, and where everyone, everywhere, can access, contribute to, and benefit from our collective human understanding. By centering the role of the leadership role of the community, we think the Declaration works so hard to do something so important, and that's to ensure that voices and priorities that are unique to different regions and localities are centered, and that the resulting solutions that we can collectively create for the open sharing of research explicitly not only respect, but actually celebrate these regional and local differences. And our community, or I think, maybe more accurately, communities here in the North American operating environment, we really mirror that of the global research community's operating environment. In North America, we're not a single homogenous, entity or community operating with centralized leadership, and we're certainly not operating with centralized funding or resources. We're, as is the global community, a complex ecosystem of diverse communities organized around geographies, disciplines, each with our own set of unique economic, social, and political priorities. But we are all committed to the principles of open scholarly communication. And while this complexity is often challenging to navigate, it ultimately is a strength. It compels us to work towards solutions that are collaborative, that are distributed, and that are complementary, and to favor structures that center community coordination rather than ones that assert top-down control. And I think maybe most importantly at SPARC, we, in something that's super important in maybe the political environment that we're operating in today, we view open access as a critical mechanism for advancing social justice. And we're proud to be a part of something that reaffirms scientific research as a public good. Really looking forward to today's webcast and to the collaborative work that will continue afterwards. I just wanted to note for folks on the webcast that we're very pleased to be working with our colleagues across the North American space. We here at SPARC are working to catalyze a new knowledge exchange space where community members who are working on or interested in a whole host of aspects of Diamond Open Access, from journal creation to production to working on equitable and sustainable funding models, can meet regularly and work collaboratively to explore and to further our work together in the North American context. This is a really key priority for SPARC this year, so stay tuned and look for more details on this space shortly. But for now, it's really my honor and my pleasure to be able to turn the mic over to our first presenter, my colleague and my friend, Reggie Raju. Reg, it's over to you. You're muted, Reg. I don't know whether
colleagues for the invitation to share an outcome of the second Global Summit on Diamond Open Access. The theme of the summit was centering social justice in scholarly communication to advance research as a public good. There are two significant components within this theme. The first is social justice, and the second is public good, what we call community and in Africa, what that underpin the declaration. The drafting of a declaration for international rollout of a publishing
Here's what we might have lost Reggie for a second. We'll give him just another second. If those persist, Arianna, we might switch the order up.
Is there?
Yeah, Reggie's still cutting out a little bit, unfortunately.
Nick, maybe if he stops sharing his screen, maybe it can be helpful for him.
Hi, sorry. seems to have been dropped. Is there a problem? Should I try again?
Here, Reggie, let me share your slides from my end and see if that helps with the stability.
Okay, all right. No, thanks. Thanks, Nick. Okay. Look, I'm sorry, Nick, but can I start from the beginning? I mean,
Please.
just right. Okay. Please, the next slide. Thanks, Nick. What I was hoping to do is to share with you an outcome of the second. The theme of the summit was centering social justice in scholarly communication to advance research as a public good. There are two significant components, two significant concepts within this theme. Justice, and the second is public good, or what I would like to call communityism, and in South Africa, we call Ubuntuism. And it is these two concepts that underpin the declaration. The draft
Reggie, we might try if you turn off your video and see if that improves the bandwidth issue.
about the declaration. I just need to talk a little bit about the logo of the summit. After much deliberation, we chose the baobab tree as the logo, as it symbolized life and positivity in many arid regions of the continent. It represents resilience and life, deeply rooted in African culture and ecosystems. The baobab tree is generally referred to as the tree of life, symbolizing the resilience of individuals and communities in the face of adversity. Next slide, please, Nick. I am not going to read. There are basically 5 core principles within this declaration. I am not going to read through it, but I'm just going to highlight some of the issues. The first, that sharing knowledge is a human right. The second, scholarly knowledge must be a public good. Participation in knowledge production and communication must be free of prejudice and bias. Diamond Open Access is community-owned. It is community-led and non-commercial. Next slide, please, Nick. Social justice, equity, and inclusivity are fundamental to Diamond Open Access. And we're looking here at a commitment to addressing both local and global challenges. Please, next slide, Nick. The declaration and the symbolism of the baobab tree share deep thematic alignments, particularly in the emphasis of resilience, community, knowledge as a public good, and the decolonization of scholarship. I would like to unpack some of these synergies. When we look at knowledge as a public good, the declaration asserts that scholarly knowledge must be freely accessible to all without barriers. The tree of life, the baobab tree, the tree of life provides shade, water, and sustenance freely to all who seek it. Just as the baobab tree nurtures life in difficult circumstances, Diamond Open Access nurtures scholarship in regions where access to and dissemination of knowledge has been historically limited. Resilience in adversity. The baobab tree thrives in arid conditions, symbolizing perseverance and the ability to sustain life against challenges. Diamond Open Access is positioned as a resilient alternative to commercial publishing, especially for Global South scholars facing economic and structural barriers in academic publishing. The biases are so entrenched in the current publishing ecosystem, demonstrates the resilience of Global South scholars when they do get published in this biased publishing ecosystem. Diamond Open Access is that nurturing component to advance demarginalization and inclusivity. Next slide, please, Nick. Community and inclusivity. The baobab tree serves as a meeting place where community leaders and elders gather to discuss important issues. It is a symbol of collective decision-making, wisdom, and shared knowledge. The declaration calls for a scholarly publishing system that is community-owned and community-led, rather than controlled by large publishing enterprises. Diamond Open Access reflects this communal spirit as it is driven and maintained by academic institutions, libraries, and non-profit publishers, institutions that prioritize public good over profit. Just as elders under the baobab tree guide their communities, Diamond Open Access platforms must be governed by diverse academic voices, ensuring that knowledge is shaped by those it serves. Just as no one owns the water within the baobab, no commercial entity should control access to knowledge. Diamond Open Access, as couched in the declaration, must be non-commercial, ensuring that knowledge remains in the hands of the global academy. Next slide, please, Nick. Decolonization and demarginalization. The declaration highlights decolonization and demarginalization as a core to Diamond Open Access. The baobab tree, deeply rooted in African culture, represents African scholarly empowerment. It represents that scholarship empowerment, providing a metaphor for shifting knowledge systems away from northern-dominated models towards locally rooted, context-relevant scholarship. Next slide, please, Nick. The declaration holds significant implications for Africa, particularly in advancing equitable and inclusive communication. What does this mean? One, ownership and sovereignty. It promotes African-led publishing initiatives, reducing dependency on commercial publishers and strengthening local control over research dissemination. Equity in knowledge production. By removing financial barriers and biases such as language, peer review, and geographic, African researchers and institutions can contribute to the bi-directional flow of scholarship. Improved forums for the dissemination of scholarship contributes to equity in knowledge production. Decolonization of scholarly communication. This challenges the dominance of Western-centric publishing models by fostering multilingualism, diverse epistemologies, and this is something that was brought out by our keynote speaker, and the inclusion of indigenous knowledge systems. Sustainable research ecosystem. It encourages investment in African-led infrastructure, such as repositories and publishing platforms, ensuring long-term accessibility and preservation of African research. And lastly, collaboration and visibility. By supporting regional and international networks, the declaration helps amplify African research on the global stage, make it more discoverable and impactful. Thanks, Nick. Thanks, colleagues.
Thank you so much, Reggie, for that presentation, and I'm glad that things stabilized there. That really was a fantastic overview of the declaration and what it means, particularly in the African context. And with that, would love to turn things over to Arianna to share a little bit about sort of the connection with the First Time in Open Access Summit and sort of the context of the declaration in Latin America. Arianna.
Thank you very much, Nick, Heather, for organizing this event. It is always difficult to present after Reggie because after this very inspiring speech, and particularly from a person that I really admire. So it's difficult to present after Reggie, but I will try to do my best. I will share my screen right now. Just, well, thank you very much. And I will present just a bit the results and outcomes from the first summit on Diamond Open Access that was held in Mexico in 2023. We host this event in the Redalic facilities, and we were very honored to receive the global community, but particularly the Latin American community that was very keen on expressing the way we do Diamond Open Access, or we have been developing Diamond Open Access as a community enterprise very far from commercial strategies, and that, sorry about my throat, that we have seen how, well, this movement of open access has been distorted over the time. And now we have facing very challenges and new barriers and new, inflationary scenarios where, again, the Global South is in a disadvantaged position to share the knowledge we produce, but mainly to be recognized as generators of knowledge as well. So this summit was hosted here. This is the building where we do Redalic in Toluca, and we based our theme on the Budapest Open Access Initiative in its 20th anniversary recommendations, because we really identify with this particular phrase that we realize after 20 years that open access is not an end in itself, but a means to other ends. And if we really understand that it's a mean to other ends, strategies to achieve open access can really be different. So if we put equity, quality, usability, sustainability, diversity, social justice as values that we want to achieve through open access, then the discussions and the conversations focus on that instead of having open access itself. In this event, we had 3 events. One was more regional for the Latin American community, which is the conference for journal editors that we organize in Redalic periodically. Also the meeting of America members, and also the Diamond Open Access Conference. We have almost 700 participants, 260 in person. It was a huge event, I think. A lot of interaction also via online. Well, from 75 countries, from about 500 institutions. And something that is very important, we have also a very wonderful staff composed mainly by students, because we are based in a university, in a public university. So the engagement of early career researchers, young people was really great in this event. And just to describe the key messages that we wanted to convey during the first summit, I will illustrate these key messages with these photographs that we found in the whole campus of the Toluca campus of the university here. So for us, one main message is that publishing is human heritage. That also a strong message, and that in Latin America, science is not a commodity. And this is a message that is not always very well received, even in our universities in Latin America, because they are unfortunately transitioning to be more driven by rankings, by commercial strategies of publishing. But still, we are a resilient community, just in line with what Reggie commented before. And also, we really believe that research assessment must evolve for the future of open access and open science. If we don't really impact in research assessment, we don't have future on that. This is also a key, of course, claim of the community: no fees for reading, no fees for publishing. And that we need to not only think on open access in a commercial way, but also in open science, because open science is dominating the global conversation. And we are now seeing also different practices coming from commercial corporations that not only take control, but also impose new barriers around different open science branches. So these kind of messages were along the campus. So this also generated something that was very interesting among the community of students that didn't participate directly, but actually took part of the conversation, or started asking, what is it about, right? And it was an event that is characterized as a multilingual event. So we have live language interpretation in 4 languages. It was obviously free of cost. And I would like to highlight this component, that beyond open access, as already, well, Regis mentioned, it is not about open access. It is about other values and things that we want to really achieve, particularly from the global South, to really achieve science as public good. But beyond that, it was a cultural experience to share who we are, to know each other. So for us, it was the very first time that we know each other, to confirm that we share all these principles and values, and to commit together to work for something that is bigger than access, which is equity and all the values that we already said. Just to give you a little taste of what we did, just a couple of seconds of this video. This is what Diamond allows to have our local research to be known, but also to be communicated in our local languages. So it allows diversity intrinsically. So if we don't really invest in Diamond and put out efforts in Diamond and other sustainability models around scholarly communications that allows really this inherent diversity, we will not have this opportunity, I really believe, again. So the open access movement really gives us that. And this summit allows us to achieve this. This is one of the main outcomes of the first summit. I invite you, if you haven't read it yet, to maybe sign it if you are willing to. This is the Manifesto on Science as Global Public Good, Non-Commercial Open Access. This was an outcome from the Red Ali conference that was part of the summit here in Toluca. Now we're very happy because we have more than 16,000 signatories from 93 countries. So I think we have a consensus around this topic, but unfortunately the actions that sometimes are undertaken to achieve open access are not in line with these strategies. And finally, just some highlights on the Toluca-Cape Town Declaration, that for us, it was a way to connect from the efforts we are doing in Latin America to the efforts you are doing in Africa, but above all, to find people that share this common understanding that open access is just a mean to another ends. So for me, it's very, very important. It's a milestone in the open access conversation, because we found here a definition of what Diamond Open Access is as a path to achieve regional and language diversity in science, but also 3 key components in the definition of Diamond, because we are now seeing a lot of definitions of Diamond Open Access. And for me, community-owned, community-led, and non-commercial are key components of the definition of Diamond Open Access. And also this connection between Toluca and Cape Town for us is very meaningful, because we found this common ground, these common needs, but this common vision that the discussion is not about open access, it's about social justice, equity, and inclusivity. Well, and that's it. I will stop here. I'm very happy to answer any questions or hear the comments. Thank you, Nick.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Arianna. And before we go to their 3 respondents to sort of contextualize this discussion in the North American context, we just wanted to thank you both for really bringing more than a flavor of both of the first 2 summits on Diamond Open Access, and sort of sharing that with this group in a way that I feel like helps folks get a sense of what it was to be present at those and the key outcomes in moving forward. So, we'll again encourage folks to be thinking of questions or ideas to share. And again, after we hear from the 3 respondents that I mentioned at the beginning, if there's anybody else that would like to come off of mute to share sort of how the declaration aligns with your work to advance Diamond Open Access, there'll be space for that and any questions that folks have. So to kick off, sort of the response from the North American context, I will invite Jessica Diller-Clark from Erudit to sort of hop up on our virtual stage for a moment to sort of share the perspective of how this declaration intersects with Erudit's important work. And hopefully, Jessica, the shuffling that happens when you promote somebody to panelists in Zoom has sorted out, and you can jump in.
Yes, I'm here. Can you see me and hear me?
Yes.
Excellent. So thanks to Nick and Heather for the invitation, and I'll echo what Arianna said about presenting after Reggie. Now I also have to present after Arianna. Both of you are such powerful presences in the Diamond OA movement. So thank you all so much for your work. I was very privileged to be able to attend both the Toluca Summit and the Summit in Cape Town, and found both events really inspiring, and just the creation of more of a global network around Diamond Open Access, just so fundamentally important. Nick and Heather asked me to talk about what's going on in Canada around Diamond Open Access. So I work at Reggie, which is Canada's national platform for scholarly journals in the humanities and social sciences. Canada, as many of you know, is a bilingual nation with official languages in English and French. And our platform supports both journals publishing in both English and French, as well as a small number of journals that accept work in some other languages as well. So we have a plurilingual platform. 2/3 of the journals on our platform already function in Diamond Open Access, and sort of like the bilingualism aspect, this mirrors the makeup of Diamond Open Access journals in Canada. Recent research that was undertaken by some of my colleagues found that a majority of Diamond Open Access, or a majority of journals in Canada, already operate in Diamond Open Access. So we have a real local need to support this local publishing environment. And we do that through a number of different avenues. A really important one is our Partnership for Open Access. So this is a Diamond Open Access funding support program supported with Canada's Academic Library Consortium, the Canadian Research Knowledge Network, or CRKN, and 57 of their member libraries, as well as some libraries in France and Belgium. And all of these libraries contribute to a fund that sustains all of the journals on the RD platform, whether they still operate with a subscription model and a delayed open access, where their content comes open a year after publication, or in full immediate open access without APCs. So this is a way for libraries to make a principled commitment to this publishing model. We also in Canada are really fortunate to benefit from public funding for research and research dissemination at a number of levels. Of course, we have our research funding councils who promote and fund original research in all disciplines. Those granting councils are currently undergoing a policy review of their policy that'll apply to their funded researchers, that is going to mandate immediate open access, which is in line with what we want to see for Canadian research being more discoverable and more available around the world. But we want to make sure that it's done in a fair, equitable way that supports Diamond Open Access. So we still have some work to do with our stakeholders in Canada to make sure that that final policy comes out supporting Diamond Open Access. We are also really unique in, I think, possibly the world, in the fact that we have funding programs for our scholarly journals to help them support their operations. There's ones that exist within the province of the Quebec, specifically for French language journals, and a national program for journals in the humanities and social sciences. And both of those programs either have moved or are moving to immediate open access without APCs, so funding Diamond Open Access journals. And we're really grateful to see our funders taking that principled step to fund those journals. But we're also really lucky in the sense that our governments are also funding infrastructure. So in Canada, we have a national infrastructure called Coalition Publica. This is a partnership between RUD and the Public Knowledge Project, or PKP, which develops the open source software, Open Journal Systems, or OJS, and OMP or Open Monograph Press. You hopefully know of them. So what that is for the Canadian context is combining OJS as kind of a local publishing platform where journals can independently manage their publication process and then centralize all of that content on the Arianna platform where it can be fed into all of the discovery systems and be supported by the services that we need in our modern knowledge environment. And the Coalition Publica partnership has a really close and I would say even fundamental collaboration with library publishers, the librarians working at academic institutions across Canada in scholarly communications roles who are locally hosting and supporting our scholarly journals. So there's a whole network of support that is really helping Diamond Open Access to be possible in Canada. We obviously want to see even more support and more of a groundswell and an appreciation of our national environment for open access publishing. And to that end, last year, shortly before the summit, in fact, Coalition Publica published a Diamond Open Access statement. So Arianna and PKP jointly issued this statement reaffirming our commitment to Diamond Open Access in the Canadian context. And I encourage you to take a look at that and see if it could inspire some work in your own local context.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Jessica, for not only covering Arianna's important work, but also giving us sort of a broader sense of the Canadian context that I think is really helpful. And we'll turn to Catherine next from the California Digital Library, though I also want to explain Heather's having to hop in a cab to go to the Hill live on webcast. As you can imagine, it's particularly busy time on the policy front. So having to walk and chew gum at the same time on the SPARC front. But yeah, Catherine, would be great if you could share a little bit from CDL's perspective.
Thanks so much, Nick and Heather in the cab for the invitation to join the conversation today. Speaking from the perspective of the California Digital Library at the University of California, I'm truly delighted to be attending this SPARC-sponsored webinar and to have the opportunity to follow Reggie and Arianna and now Jessica to reflect for a few minutes on the Toluca-Cape Town Declaration and the ways in which it resonates with our eScholarship Diamond OA Journal Publishing Program. I should mention that I attended the Global Diamond OA Summit in Toluca and was really disappointed to miss the second Global Summit in Cape Town. Coming from the United States, where the Diamond OA model has yet to be adopted at significant scale, it was really inspiring in Toluca to hear from and learn from folks in the Latin American community who have been advancing this open access model in really substantial ways within distinct local environments for decades. It was also remarkable to be among people who foregrounded their open access publishing with a deep commitment to equity and inclusion. And as we are experiencing in the United States right now, the values of equity, inclusion, and social justice, or even the ability to talk about those values, can never be taken for granted. They must be deliberately cultivated and prioritized within any realm of information sharing, particularly within the scholarly research enterprise, with its potential to create both local and global ecosystems of knowledge that can shape and inform the ways that we live as humans on this imperfect planet. In our local context, eScholarship has been the University of California's Diamond OA Journal publisher for almost 25 years now. While the early days of this program just saw a trickle of journals opting for this model, the UC open access policies in 2012 and 2013, along with UC's boycott of Elsevier in 2019, opened scholars and editors' eyes to the possibility, excuse me, of choosing a different path that could ensure global access to published research via an institution-based publisher. Our program has grown substantially since, now publishing over 90 UC-affiliated Diamond OA journals across the academic disciplines. E-scholarship publications are scholar-led and aligned with the academic values of the university. Our publications often traverse standard disciplinary boundaries, explore novel publishing models, support underrepresented voices within the scholarly record, and reach folks in applied fields beyond academia. We believe we're doing something fundamentally important, serving fields and communities that are significantly underserved or ill-served by the commercial publishing industry, not because of the quality or the relevance of their research, but because their topics or their audiences or their goals or their funding models don't fit neatly into a profit-driven publishing ecosystem. At the same time, however, our Diamond OA publishing program faces some of its own equity challenges, specifically tied to the problem of long-term sustainability. As I've said before, including in Toluca, we have a bad habit in the US of, at least, of referring to the work of Diamond OA journal publishing as a labor of love, a euphemism for a publication with invisible labor, insufficient infrastructure, and limited funding and attention from the stakeholders who could be providing sustaining resources. We need to develop scalable funding models and publishing mechanisms that can offer ongoing support for these publications, rather than giving ourselves and others permission to under-resource these vital efforts. We've begun to take seriously this challenge of sustainable diamond open access publishing and to experiment with funding models that make visible the labor involved in running and sustaining e-scholarship journals over time. One such model is the Lyrasis Open Access Community Investment Program, or OACIP, which provides a community-driven crowdsourcing framework that enables multiple stakeholders, including academic and public libraries, academic departments, institutions, et cetera, to evaluate and collectively fund individual Diamond Open Access journals that have been vetted and are collected on the Lyrasis site. We were thrilled to have 2 of our e-scholarship journals accepted into this program, both flipped from a commercial publisher to e-scholarship with the intention of living their values, and they are thriving. But we're also interested in other paths to sustainability that include the establishment of open infrastructure that can't be co-opted by commercial players looking to control yet another aspect of the scholarly communication ecosystem. For over 5 years now, CDL has participated in the Next Generation Library Publishing Project, which strives to provide Diamond Open Access publishers with high quality, low cost, modern, open infrastructure that maximizes capacity, optimizes discovery, and drives engagement with the research we publish. We believe that this kind of infrastructure should be embedded in a community-led, values-driven approach to scholarly communication. And we're currently working on an exciting project to pilot a federated modular consortial publishing platform, that's a mouthful, for a few members of the Big Ten Academic Alliance through a project co-funded by BTAA and an IMLS grant. I'll end by saying that I'm eager to find ways to engage a broader North American community in conversations about what it would look like to achieve sustainable Diamond Open Access publishing in a highly distributed environment that lacks any kind of centralized funding model. This lack of centralization, I think, is both a challenge and a strategic advantage. We're going to have to be creative about how we achieve sustainability, but on the other hand, there's no single funding spigot to turn off either. Diamond OA journals in the US as independent entities play a crucial role in ensuring that we will continue to hear voices that are being silenced elsewhere. This could be our moment to advance this model together at scale. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Catherine. And our final panel, or our final respondent, will be Janet, the current president of the Library Publishing Coalition. Though before I turn things over, I just looking through the attendee list, just see so many other folks on that are doing such important work, and just want to recognize, the number of folks that could also provide, really, really, helpful responses to in this discussion, which clearly we won't have a whole lot of time for at the end, but just want to sort of express our gratitude for all of the work that folks participating in this call are doing to advance Diamond. And with that, I will turn it over to Janet to bring us home.
Thanks. So I'm from the Library Publishing Coalition. We're a member organization made up of academic and research libraries, along with some library consortia. And we're dedicated to promoting and developing best practices in scholarly publishing within libraries. And so our focus is often open access. The LPC is fully in support of the Toluca-Cape Town Declaration on Diamond Open Access, and many of our members were in attendance at the global summits. Our community vision is a scholarly publishing landscape that is open, inclusive, and sustainable. And we work to bring that vision into reality by providing academy-owned, scholar-led publishing that's informed by the practices and values of librarianship. And as Arianna mentioned, Diamond OA is a means to those ends, right? So many of our members are using Diamond OA as a model. While our library publishing encompasses many different models, the vast majority of library published scholarly materials are free to readers and authors. And library publishing programs generally develop in response to local needs, making them an invaluable tool to address local scholarly communication challenges. At the global level, the LPC networks individual publishing programs and helps to connect their work to the larger scholarly communication, challenges. So we're excited to participate in the emerging global community on Diamond Open Access. And we're grateful to SPARC and the organizers of the Diamond OA Summits for creating space in this community to come together. In December 2023, we released our latest community plan, which will guide our activities until 2029. And this plan was developed with deep engagement with our community, and Diamond OA fits very well in different areas of our community plan. In particular, our third area of focus is to navigate changes in scholarly output, business models, and infrastructure through a lens of ethics and collaboration. In particular, we aim to support the community's understanding of policy, technology, and the legal landscape within which library publishers operate, and partner with groups that are tracking critical field-level issues like Diamond Open Access. Another area in that plan that's kind of new for us is advocating for library publishers and giving them tools to advocate for themselves. And serve as a voice for the community of library publishers within emergent conversations like this around open access. So Diamond OA is definitely something our community is deeply invested in, and it's reflected in a number of ways in our work. If you look at our latest directory, which was published in 2024, you'll see that many library publishers explicitly mention using Diamond OA as a model. And last year, we hosted a webinar on Diamond OA in North America, as well as a panel discussion on flipping a library information journal to Diamond OA. And so we hope to continue to provide space for these valuable discussions within our specific community, as well as provide other resources to library publishers who are interested in this model. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Janet, for I think perfect note to close out those three responses on. And again, we'll invite folks if you have questions or things to share in the chat to hop on in. But also, before we close with some of the few minutes that we have remaining, Arianna and Reggie, I would love sort of your perspective hearing sort of what Jessica, Catherine, and Janet just shared. Sort of any. What comes to mind for you all about sort of what we might be able to learn in the North American context from the progress that you both have driven in Latin America and in Africa, as to Spark's point, or to Heather's point earlier, we try to embark on creating this sort of knowledge sharing space and better connect those leading this work in North America. Arianna, do you want to take the first crack at it?
Yeah, I was waiting for Reggie. Reggie, please go ahead.
No, go, Arianna. It's fine. I mean, okay. I think for me, the one very positive to come out of this summit was the potential to collaborate across continents And I think what's happening by default, we go to our countries and we look at what our country can do as opposed to crossing those kind of boundaries. If we want to advance diamond, and as Arianna said, it is not about access. It is a much broader concept. The philanthropic underpinning has to come through. The communityism has to come through. So we cannot be working within our, for want of a better concept, within our silos. We need to break out of that to have a really divergent scholarly ecosystem. If we don't break out of that, I think we then become reliant on the money factor as being the driver, which for me, it should not be. It is about how scholarship can address issues globally and for one to be more inclusive in this particular process. And I think coming from Africa, we don't have the luxury of finances. So we have to be innovative in the way we find solutions to our challenges. And I think for me, that becomes a critical issue. That innovation needs to drive the growth of our scholarship. And as a librarian, I think we need to re-look at our roles as librarians. Because fundamentally, when we talk about all of these issues, it's located within the library. So whether you publish in a subscription journal, your library is the coordinator of that. So how then do we flip that particular model? And this is something that I've been talking about. Collecting, we may need to transition from collecting from the outside for the inside to collecting from the inside for the outside. Thanks, Arianna. Sorry, I didn't mean to.
That's okay.
complicate it.
I will take just 1 minute, but well, for me, it's really very, very important to learn from the advances in diamond in the US and Canada. Thank you, Jessica, Catherine, Janet, for sharing all that information, because I don't know, but maybe you cannot imagine the impact and influence that these kind of actions from the North impact the South. So it's very important that also these actions and advances are undertook in the North, because in the South sometimes our governments and our institutions tend to see what you're doing, and this is I mean, so influential to the things that are happening also in the South. But also it shows how Diamond Open Access actually emerge from the community, as Reggie said. So all these initiatives that we are talking today are emerged from the community, that can be supported, of course, by government, that are surrounded by different stakeholders around it. But actually, Diamond gives us this space for the communities to propose, to be creative, to be innovative. This is something that is really in line with the Diamond Open Access values also. Thank you for sharing this information, and I'm happy to contribute to the efforts we all are doing in different regions.
Thanks, Arianna, and I think that's the perfect note to end the conversation on. I really appreciate Jessica, Catherine, and Janet in particular for jumping in to sort of share how the declaration in this work is connects to each of your initiatives. And Arianna and Reggie, really appreciate your taking the time to sort of ground this conversation as we seek to better connect the diamond community across North America in these really important first two global summits in Toluca, in Cape Town, and in the declaration that has come out of them. And we'll love to work with you both in sort of how we can make sure the Toluca-Cape Town Declaration sort of remains threaded through and informs these efforts as a real active document, not just something that's signed and forgotten, which I don't think there's any risk of it being. And the final thing I'll share is just at the end of this, as we close, there'll be a super brief survey that will pop up. And I just want to flag there is one question there for folks just to provide suggestions about what would be helpful as we're trying to better connect folks working to advance diamond across North America, given the folks that are participating in this call that are deeply engaged in that work. Just wanted to flag that as an opportunity for feedback as we embark on trying to create more connective tissue between folks doing this important work. So again, thanks so much to our speakers and to everybody that joined us today. And we'll be in touch soon about next steps in our work here. Thanks, everybody. Take care.